Oh, hold on, it just disappeared again. Okay. Sorry, guys, I have to keep reloading my screen so I can see all the chat and participants. All right, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Hoping 2021 is a little bit more straightforward. We'll see. We don't have a huge meeting tonight, but we do have two resolutions. Well, two potential resolutions. We'll have a discussion first and then make our decision about the second one. But the first one was brought to our attention by Tammy, actually, that we and Jeanine from C2, that there was a meeting with the DOE about, for those of you who are not familiar with how schools are funded, they take a register count in the end of October, and then they fund the schools. And what happened, obviously, this year is a lot of people, we had a lot of attrition due to COVID. A lot of people have left the city, they've moved their kids to private school, they've gone to other cities, and schools are really down in enrollment as a result. And what that means is when that happens and a school misjudges, which is really what this was set up for, misjudges the amount of kids that are coming, either offers, they have to pay the DOE back the budget surplus. So in other words, if you say that you have 480 kids, the DOE pays you for 480, you hire your teachers, and then 400 show up, you pay them back for the 80 kids that didn't show up. It's always the way it's been. It's incredibly unfair because by that time the principals have hired the teachers and they can't predict what families will do, but that's the deal, that they have to send that money back. It's been an annoyance more than anything else up until now because our principals in town are actually really good about estimating how many will show up. They have a lot of experience. So while it still isn't great, it's been bearable. But we've been complaining about it for as long as I've been on this community board. And this year is, a disaster. They don't have the money to pay back the DOE. We were shocked to hear the DOE was expecting the money back. And this resolution is to say that this year we have to give principals a pass. Now, we know that this is going to create a hardship on the part of the DOE. We really don't know what that means in terms of budget, but I think we should pass the resolution anyway, and maybe have it therefore be it resolved that says that we believe that this year the school should get a pass on this, and pending discussion about city budget. In other words, maybe there'll be a compromise that's reached, but they should not be on the hook for the whole thing because for some schools it's a third of their population. So does anybody have anything to add? Any questions? Discussion? Andrew, I see Andrew's hand.
Hi, I'm definitely in favor of the resolution. Just one question from a timing perspective, and I just can't recall. Mm-hmm. What is the gap between when principals consider that they have a solid indication of numbers and that October timeframe?
Well, I mean, they make their offers in the spring. I mean, it's brutal. And then they hire, So it's the summer attrition generally, and then there's even more in the beginning of September. Kids don't show up, and then they get into school and something happens and they leave. So I would say, in terms of when it happens, I would argue that it just happens all over the period of summer, all the way into September.
Right, got it. Thank you.
As people's plans change. I remember that Lisa Ripperger used to say that, she would lose like 10%. Like she had it down to like a percentage that it was pretty consistent each year. So she was able to do like a logical projection. But right now there's nothing logical happening at all. And, these schools are finding themselves with 5 too many teachers. And what are you supposed to do about that? I think the DOE should be working with the schools to, figure out ways to use those teachers. We have incredibly difficult situations with our special ed students. I think that they could be well used. And I don't think that we should be putting them into a rubber room. Don't think they should be demoted into, we heard some stories about how teachers were, used to teach English, but now they're proctors. Dennis was telling us about that, if you recall. That's not a great way to be using our teachers. So I know that schools are really struggling in terms of being able to reach their kids with class sizes like this and make sure they're learning. And that would be a logical place in my mind's eye. So, and just have our schools overstaffed for a change. Imagine that. So, but to do that, they can't pay them back. And, another thing about paying them back is that they then let the teachers go, or they have to put the teachers back into the UFT pool. I mean, it's bad for everyone.
I've got a question.
Uh-huh.
Trisha, it's for you and Jeff and everybody else involved, actually.
Is that Sarah?
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry to butt in.
That's okay. I can see your hand.
I'm wondering, there's a big need for tutors and people to interface with children after school. Could teachers be used for that? Or is that against the rules, Jeff?
Jeff might know in terms of the contract, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, our day is our day, and then after hours is after hours. So the idea is to have the help, is the teachers teach during the day.
Is it possible to have the day switched around so that perhaps this person's job is virtual instead of showing up, and that it's in the evening?
I would seriously doubt it. I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be about a union issue, and it's going to be that I don't know. At my school, we're all teaching all day long. So it depends on the school.
All right.
But
this is Judy. My understanding is that teachers can tutor, but not at their own school.
Yes.
well, that's for sure. You definitely can't tutor your own school students or their siblings.
That is true. But in terms of those hours, I do think, again, this is a time to think outside the box. And I think it could be really useful to be willing to switch, shift their day back. That could be useful. I mean, in high school, there's free periods during the day. So, and even in middle school, so you can take advantage of those periods. It doesn't mean they have to work from 6 until midnight,
Those periods are prep periods for teachers to prepare for teaching. They're not free periods.
No, I'm talking about the kids' free period. So the kids would have availability. A teacher that is not teaching because of attrition would then be able to spend time with children during those free periods of the kids.
Exactly. And maybe during part of homework after hours.
Right.
Afternoon.
I think that's
change the hours to Jeff's point. I'm sorry, this is Wendy, but I think just what we can say is that you still have a class size issue. I mean, having a smaller group work, have breakout during the day. I'm sure, there are times that it would be nice to be able to break the class up, especially in the elementary school grades.
every time you schedule a class, there has to be preparation. You can't just put adults with kids in rooms and say, do stuff. So that's part of the issue. The other issue is cumulatively, or there may be, or in aggregate, there may be a lot of attrition and numbers might be down, but at Millennium, for example, that's not the case. All my classes I have 2 classes below the maximum. So many schools don't have this issue. If you add up all the schools in the city, there's a lot of them. So even if you take tens of thousands of kids and take them out of the system, the schools are still very full. I haven't heard stories of teachers sitting around doing nothing all day.
So we do have stories of over a third attrition, Jeff, in our elementary schools downtown. It's a serious, serious problem. Maybe not at the high school level, but we have a problem at 234. We have a problem at 276. These schools are not full. And this DOE has come to them and they're expecting the money back. And that's why, we were called to do this resolution. And so I do suspect that a lot of schools are full, but for those that are in a hardship, I do think we should be thinking about, this resolution to relieve them of having to give that back and to letting go of teachers or putting them in a proctor position and using them in a more productive way.
You're advocating for them to let go of teachers? I'm not understanding how we want to try to deal with this economic issue. That's what's confusing.
They don't have the money to pay the DOE back. A lot of people left. So the DOE's given them $700,000. And now the DOE did the head count and they want $300,000 back. They've already hired the teachers. They probably have very small class sizes. They probably have teachers doing, I don't know, the schools could have moved to repurposing those teachers themselves. But the bottom line is that their registers are low and the DOE is looking for the money back. And our resolution, I would recommend, is to keep everybody where they are, relieve the back this year. And
right. Yeah, that's what we should be doing. I don't think it's in the purview of this committee to tell schools or teachers how to repurpose their day, to even use that word I don't love, but they work at the school, they're hired for the school.
Yeah, we can avoid talking about laying off. We could avoid the layoff conversation altogether.
Yeah, right. It's just saying it should be it's a financial hardship and they should be seeking federal government money under Biden to try to fill the gap if they have to. Or move money out of the police department toward that, whatever the case may be. But you can't hire teachers and then when the kids aren't there, just tell them you have to go. Like they've been
doing that for as long as public school has been, as long as I've been on this board anyway. They do expect the teachers to pay them back, fire the teachers, call the DOE, have them sent somewhere else. It's terrible. But it's never been this bad. And I think that's the only reason I wanted to discuss potential layoffs is because it's always been this way. And so we could be challenged by the DOE saying it's always been this way. What's your beef? It's only.
I've been in the system for 30 years. I've never seen in the middle of the year, teachers have never been fired because of a hole in the budget. It just doesn't happen.
It's usually in October because that's when they do the registers and fund the schools.
Right. They call it accessing, but even that is exceptionally rare.
It is when in a regular time in history, Jeff, when the principals know that they're going to lose 10%, they staff accordingly, right? Right now, they're losing 30%, so they haven't staffed accordingly. And that's the problem. It's kind of this is definitely unusual, but I want to draw attention to the fact that even though it's a policy, that the policy really shouldn't be upheld right now. This is different.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the principles. Yeah?
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna, sorry, it's Andrew, and my hand function doesn't seem to be working. So the money's already been released from the DOE to the schools, is that correct? Or do they time it? Do they partial release based on the time of year?
So they say how many offers they've made, the principals say how many have accepted, and my understanding is that they fund it before September 1 based on that number. And then on October 30th, they then confirm the registers, and the discrepancies between what they paid and who's actually sitting in the chairs on October 30th needs to be reimbursed.
Got it. So this isn't and I think this is an important distinction, at least for me to understand. This isn't a question of the DOE needing the money back so that they can ensure they fund schools. If it were, meaning if it were a phased-in funding, they did 1/2 first semester and 50% second semester. This isn't a timing issue. They've already funded. So schools have what they projected.
Correct.
This isn't, I need this money back because I need to do X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
Got it.
So, 321 is first. Oh, I have an echo. Sorry. They went as far. I'm gonna mute myself. Ben, can you see what?
Tricia, while you're working on your echo, I have one too.
Oh no,
It's happening.
Yeah, that. So I'm going to reload this page. I don't know what it's going to do, but let's see.
So I had my hand up. I just had a quick comment. I would say that we need to decouple the funding issue from the staffing issue, because the funding issue is was based on the concept of a regular school year, and staffing wise, the DOE is requiring schools to educate less students per class, so they actually need more teachers to provide the services that they would have in a regular year in a blended learning year. And so they're requesting more, they're requiring more work for the same amount of money per child. And so I think it's very easy to use the argument that, well, since the rules have completely changed, the funding should go through at the very least as it would have originally. And then, and then further examine whether the schools in fact actually need more, because they are actually providing more in services. If you look at
to answer the question, Rosa, they have staffed differently because of COVID. The teachers have worked that out the schools have already worked that out. This resolution is really about whatever it is they agreed on, the per pupil spending. They should not be held to send it back if the student registers changed. I would agree with you that we don't need to get into talking about, teachers losing their jobs. We don't need to talk about staffing. We should just talk about funding and refunding and leave it at that, because there's too many things we don't know about the way the schools have been structured this year based on COVID and blended learning, to your point.
Tricia, this is Judy. I agree. It makes sense to do sort of a limited resolution just based on funding and not get into the rest of it. And I would support that resolution.
Okay. Anyone else?
Me too. I would support that resolution.
Okay, great.
Me too.
All right. Sarah's here. Sarah Cassell. Who else do we have? Anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, Wendy. This is Wendy. I support it.
Okay. All right, good. Do you guys want to hash it out together, or are you fine with me? It's a pretty straightforward resolution. I can do it later.
Is it just simply going to say that given all the struggles of the city and yada, 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 that this is not a time for schools to be looking to return money when they have no means of doing so?
Exactly. I'll state the facts about the structure, and then I will get the data with some of the schools and how much attrition they've had, get my whereases with the data, and then it'll just be, given the pandemic, therefore be it resolved that schools do not have to refund the DOE for a loss of students in this climate, both for the 2020, the fall of 2020, and the fall of 2021. That's what CB2s says. Because they don't feel as though things are going to be back to normal in September, and I would have to agree.
Yep.
And then we can take it from there in terms of, you know, into the future. Maybe we'll be lucky and get this nice precedent that we can then make a policy out of.
And we're just basically staying away from any discussion of what teachers are doing with their day and how and all that. That's a side thing.
Exactly.
Good.
All right, is everybody good? Any more discussion before we take a vote? All right, great. Jen, do you want to do a roll call?
Go ahead. Is a member can before call the question and someone else second, please?
Second it, this Wendy.
Call the question?
Yeah, then someone else second.
Wendy seconded, but I'll third it.
Okay.
Sorry, was I supposed to call the question? I apologize.
It's all right.
Yeah, but it's okay. I'll go ahead and start. So Trisha,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes. Yes.
Sarah Castle, Wendy,
Yes.
Daron,
Rose, yes.
Devin's not here. Dennis, not here. Taylin. Taylin, are you there?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
okay. Bob's not here. Judith?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew?
Andrews, yes.
Okay. And Sarah E?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
And just on a side note, do we need to do the attendance in the chat, or is this the attendance now?
You still have to sign in. I'll provide the link again in the chat, just so everyone's
Perfect.
on hand.
Yeah, somehow when I log in, because I have to use my phone, it doesn't fully log in like when you put it in the link. So thank you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wendy, if you go through the link from the CB1 telling us about the meeting, there's a sign-in sheet there. Do you ever do that or no?
No, I usually use the notice that comes out for the, I use the link that's the notice of the meeting tonight. I click in that way.
Okay.
And it asks for my email, but never anything else. So I don't know. Okay. Thanks for the link. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, great. That's done. Is Emmer here?
He is. I'm gonna move him up as text. Okay. I'm going to unmute him. Hi, Amir. Can you hear us?
So Amira has an update on our public library situation.
Amir, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Can you see me? Are you supposed to see me?
Unfortunately, for some reason, I can't move you to panelist.
That's okay.
Yeah, you'll be able to use your audio for now, if that's okay with you.
It's totally fine with me. I don't look so hot today anyway, so that's fine. Okay, great. So I don't have too much to say, actually. I shared this information about a week ago, but also jumping in here to let everyone know that, as you may well know already, that Battery Park City branch did finally open on Monday. Obviously, right now, I mean, we were happy that we were able to get it open and respond to your very valid point that there really wasn't anything in your district. And so it's open for grab and go right now. And basically what that means is it's really just picking up books in almost like a curbside model, really. So you would call ahead, make your reservation for the books you want to pick up. And then you would show up, and for a limited time, you would go inside, grab your books. And there's also some limited browsing that is permitted. It's not really quantified, but it's sort of a use your best judgment and be a good neighbor. And then that would really be it. Now, as you all may recall, back in November, we were preparing to move to phase 2, and we did move to phase 2 for about a week there, where we were providing, computer, internet, scanning, copying. We were very excited about that. But things got very bad, coronavirus-wise, at that point. And so we had to scale back phase 2. So right now we're in a holding pattern. We're doing our absolute best to open branches, but we can't really do anything beyond grab and go due to safety concerns. But we are regularly reevaluating our plans and waiting for things to get better so that we can provide more services at branches and open additional branches.
Okay, great. Anyone have any questions for Mir?
This is Wendy. I think it's wonderful. How are you going to get the word out to the neighborhood that it's open?
So on Monday, actually, the branch manager at Battery Park City, Dawn Chance, she emailed all of the patrons. And then our communications team has also been reaching out to networks as well.
It's great. Can you put a sandwich board out on the sidewalk with, with a notice? I think that because tons of people are taking walks, that's one of their great pleasures. And most people, of course, walk on the riverside of things. So I don't know if you could put one on the riverside, but at least in front of the library, I think that would really help as well.
Is there no signage there right now? Because there should have been something that went up ahead of the 11th.
I apologize. I haven't been by it, but I was just asking.
Okay. I think there is a sign. I don't know if it is a sandwich board, but I know that that's a big part of our reopening process. But I will also, if that's not the case, please let me know, and I will also double check at the same time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
I just sometimes think something like a sandwich board on the sidewalk versus a note on the door. People don't look at notes on the door as much. That's the only comment. But if there's a sandwich board, I just haven't walked by there since you've opened. But thank you.
Yeah, of course, no problem. And if it's not a sandwich board, I'll definitely pass that suggestion along. One more thing I did want to mention, well, two more things if I just have a minute here. One, all of our remote and digital programming is still out there. And so a lot of it is tutoring for students. We have a partnership with BrainFuse. We also have things for job seekers, one-on-one career counseling, all of that. Another service that has been great for the grab and go process is Shelf Help. So you can call a librarian and tell them some of your reading interests, and they'll actually curate a bundle of books for you that you can pick up. And the very last thing I wanted to mention is that we're going to be making a very slight adjustment to our hours starting on the 19th. So right now, I believe we're open till 7 during the week. That's going to be changing to, we're going to be open 11 to 5, Monday through Saturday. And the reason for that is because there's a 44% drop in patrons after 5. And so based on those numbers, we want to be able to make the adjustment, and then also makes us be able to channel more staff and resources to those peak hours as well. So I wanted to give everyone a heads up about that.
All right, thank you.
I just want to say thanks so much, and we really appreciate the library, your work you guys are all doing, and it's awesome.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's great to hear that, especially right now. Thanks.
I had a quick question, if I may. You mentioned opening new locations. I was wondering if you had anything planned for the financial district area. I saw it on our community board's list of wish list of things we'd like to have, but I haven't heard anything about one. So I was wondering if you could elaborate.
Like a brand new branch? Is that what you mean? I'm sorry. I'm not sure I understand.
Yes, a brand new branch. But right now, the eastern side doesn't really have anything, right?
Yeah. Well, when I said that, I was referring to sort of reopening existing branches as the corona situation improves. But I will definitely check in and see if there's anything slated for that area for sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Amir. Moving on to our last item for tonight. This is more like a preemptive strike, if you will. The DOE in the past has removed holiday days when we have been in situations where, you know, there's been concerns about loss of learning over snow, time off, and other things that come up. And there was a rumor that the DOE might consider cutting back or eliminating some of the upcoming breaks to compensate for the late start in the year, to compensate for the loss of learning. And, you know, it created some chaos last time because they did something funky, like, I think Jeff can elaborate, where they said if you have your plane tickets and you've made your plans, you can go, but if not, school will be in session or whatever. But it was not well done. And we felt that if there's even a rumor of this happening, that we could make a preemptive strike because they may end up doing something with this February break. So this resolution would really just be to say, you know, it would be best to not take the breaks away from the kids and the teachers, because despite the fact that there is definitely going to be a loss of learning, taking away their breaks is, you know, the effects on morale would, and, you know, the likelihood that it would not improve learning in that amount of time and without a break, that it would not be what we would recommend. So, discussion, ideas.
So Trisha, this is Judy. I have an extremely cynical view to share. So I mean, for me, you know, like the kids don't have anything to do. There has been a loss of learning. I mean, I think in an ideal world, the breaks would be canceled and my kids are like looking at me like I'm crazy. The breaks would be canceled and you know, the learning would be enhanced. But what happened last year is the break was canceled. The spring break was canceled. And we got an email from all the schools saying, oh, so one of my kids' schools had real classes. The other school, we got an email that was like, here's what you should be doing during this non-break, with like a link to websites, and you need to sign in every day. So they basically managed to just get around it. And it was ridiculous. Like, why did my kids have to sign in at 8:30 a.m. and then not do the links to like the museums that they're, I mean, it was just ridiculous. So, I mean, I think if the schools are just going to get around it, then I don't see the point. So that's my cynical view.
I honestly think the kids need a break from the computers.
Yeah.
Even if they just sit and like do nothing. I honestly, because I heard this about not only February, but also spring break in April, that was also going to be the case. Again, they're all rumors because the DOE never sends anything that is concrete or solid. But again, it's no, enough with the computers and enough of these things that the kids need that break. And you're right, Judith is right. It's like the last time it was just about signing in. So they'll put the alarm to sign in and go back to sleep. So I was like, at least give them like, you know, nonstop sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And the teachers have a contract. It's again, they're working every day. What are they going to be like if they have no breaks from now until the end of the school year? So it is just going to be museums and things like that. And I would argue that it's good to get the kids off the computer too. I mean, that's my feeling. Am I concerned about the loss of learning? You know, I had one of my daughter's teachers came right out and said they will not be prepared for next fall for this class. I'm going to tell you right now, I cannot complete the class given the amount of periods I have a week. They've literally cut a period of my daughter's classes. One for every class. She finishes school at 1 o'clock and instead of 3 o'clock. And it's because they have to attend to special ed kids. They have, lots of challenging situations with the blended learning. And it's never been appropriately explained to me, but I continued asking and I continued getting the same answer that I didn't understand. I've talked to the DOE about it. They say that each school can make their own decisions about how they want to handle it. And so I had to surrender. But to hear that from a teacher is obviously really, really concerning. And he suggested that we all just wrap our heads around summer school. And I don't know how the DOE is going to roll out summer school, but I have to say that if there is a loss of learning, taking away winter and spring break is not going to get her ready for trig. So I just think it's like they don't have a track record for doing great things with that seized time, in my opinion.
The cost benefit analysis to me is pretty obvious. I'll leave aside the fact that it's a complete contractual violation of a major union of 70,000 people who are heroically working to provide what we can to students every single day under horrible, horrible conditions, emotional duress of living in the society right now, and so on. I'll leave that aside and only talk about the students and their families. We need some normality. And the normality is after a long time of working, you have a week off. And then you work for a long time and you have another week off. That's whether people like that or not. That's what teachers, that's the life of a teacher, a life of a student. And taking that normality away when everything else that's been normal has been completely stripped away from students is borders on the cruel to me. And so I can just tell you, my wife, who's works and travel and isn't able to do much work at all right now, or any, she's like, I need the break because I'm at home trying to help the kids do their thing also. That's family member. As a teacher, constantly trying to adapt lessons to teaching online. I certainly need a break. Students that I'm assigned that work to, who may be in class till 1 o'clock, but then have homework till 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock, they need the break. And the very idea of them even thinking of taking this break away is just infuriating on every level. And I thought, I was the one that brought this up, and I thought that we should act now preemptively. And the precedent, the only data point we have, because we can't reference hearsay, is just if they're thinking of this, it's a bad idea. You did it in February, you did it last March with almost no notice, with like a 10-day notice. And it's infuriating. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and honestly, believe it or not, psychologically, guess what really the kids hit them this year? The snow day that they didn't get. Something so small. It was small. And I was like, guys, you finish school at 12 anyway. You can go. The whole principle of it, it was so, I just think it's just a bad idea all around.
It is a bad idea. And it's not going to make any difference. The problems are too big if you want to look at it. And I think we should just, think of another solution. So, anyone else?
Yeah, this is Aaron. Would they extend school into July? Is there a chance of doing that?
Well,
No.
Okay.
I would think they certainly can. Again, you're dealing with like a contract.
When does the contract say school has to be done by June 30th or something?
June 26th is the last day of school, and teachers have been back at school since the start of the school year. We had to spend 2 weeks getting ready for this crazy new world of how it's going to be. So it's not like our year's any shorter anyway. So it's understanding it's just not a normal year. This idea of lost learning just doesn't seem to understand that, like, lost learning, how about lost mental health? Lost sense of hope, lost sense of optimism. I teach 16 and 17-year-olds, and I have an advisory of 16-year-olds. And when I check in with them, I can just see their faces. And I've asked them point blank this week, how are you coping? And they're like, I just want things to get better. These kids they're not us. They're not 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. They're 16, 17, and this is starting to look like normal to them. And it's totally disturbing. And they need some sense of, like, there's a break coming. I'm going to have a different life for 5, 6, 7 days. again, it's just so obvious to me as an educator, as someone who's worked with teenagers for 31 years. You can't just keep pushing them because of some faux idea of lost learning, and they're not going to be able to compete. It's just absurd.
It's the wrong
Thanks.
answer.
I think there's too many stories of kids just stopping, that they're just giving up and stopping. I have, a couple friends who kids used to be straight A students, and one parent in particular, their son just stopped doing anything because, to Jeff's point, this was just normal and it didn't make any sense to him. And no amount of the vaccine and the virus and everything else, he's like, until it happens, I don't believe it. And, the news is bleak and there's a lot of other things that are happening. So I agree. They need to get outside and just, away from the computer.
That should be the requirement. Maybe that
Yeah.
should be the break homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, get outside.
This
Take a
is the
walk.
best time, guys. I encourage everyone to get a membership to all the museums. The museums have been amazing. They're empty. They're take the kids, have them all go to the museums and see it in person.
I have to say, as someone who's fortunate enough to work with Talon, who's in this group right now at Millennium, who's an academic all-star, and there's many in his class and my other classes, I'm lucky to work in a school where the kids aren't stopping and not giving up. But I have a couple kids that are struggling and aren't really doing anything right now. And there's many, many schools where kids gave up a long time ago. So you think you're going to get back all that learning in 2 weeks? No way.
What does Talon think? Not to put him on the spot.
Yes, Talon, can you give us your thoughts on this? Can you hear us? Can you unmute him, Jen?
Yeah, he says, let me unmute him.
How about now, Talon? Can you hear us? Hello? Talon? Maybe he stepped away. Okay. So I think no one disagrees with where this is headed? All right, great. Well, we will do the same thing then. Is everybody okay with us writing this? I might ask Jeff to work with me on this one and get this written, and we'll send it to you guys by email to have a look at. But it's
Sounds good.
pretty straightforward, so I don't think we're
Thank you.
out here.
I can draft something and send it to you if you want.
That'd be great.
I don't
Okay.
I don't want this to, Trisha, I mean, I might want to look at this one. I don't want to come off too strongly on like there hasn't been a loss of learning or like everyone needs a break. I just want to be like keep this one straightforward like the other one.
So when you say that, Judith, what would you like there to make sure that we keep in the warehouses?
I would just say that, we should kind of keep the kids on a normal schedule and it's too late to make these sorts of changes. It's January already, something like that.
Yeah, that was the plan. What was it that you were concerned about, I should say?
I just didn't want to say like there hasn't been a loss of learning because I think there has. And I don't want to say that, it's better for their mental health because to have the breaks because I'm not really sure that it is. I mean, my perspective is my kids are going to be just glued watching doing video games the whole time. So like, I'm definitely kind of mixed on this one, but I come out thinking that let's just stick with the normal schedule. It's kind of not fair to everyone to cancel it at this late stage.
I agree with you.
I definitely think mental health has to be referenced, and if you don't agree with it, you can vote against it. But I think that's the main argument is for the mental health.
Oh, then I think I probably would because mentally, I'm saying my kids are just going to play video games the whole time and not do anything.
But I think you're saying mental health in terms of changing the schedule. I think that's what she's saying. Try to keep it as it is so that, they can make plans and expectations so you're not damaging mental health, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think one of the whereases would be that given that students have, or that these have already been calendared and are something students have looked forward to break from the normal, unusual regimen they're under, that it's essential to keep that break for their sense of normality as a form of mental health.
Yeah, that's acceptable in my mind.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. And I don't think we should get tangled up in any
All
other.
right, Judith, was that you saying that's fine? I want to be sure that was that you saying that's fine?
Yes, that was me.
Okay, so when I write it, you'll see it, but I'll try to write it not being like, studies show that, I'm just going to say,
Exactly.
for normality's sake and what little normality we can get, let's just leave it the way it is. And I'm not going to reference lost learning because it's not really, we don't know about that either.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree with some of the other comments that have been made. Like, my kids are having varied experiences. I think that's been an issue with this pandemic all along. One of them is done with class at like 11 a.m. I mean, loss of learning. Yeah, I would say so. So I do have some mixed feelings on this resolution, I must say. But at the same time, I think I come out in favor of, let's just leave the schedule where it is.
I feel exactly the way Judith does. But I do agree that powering through these breaks would not be the solution to it. And I'm happy to avoid talking about it. But,
Yeah.
if they challenge it by saying, we feel as though it can mitigate a loss of learning, we can handle it then, I don't think 2 weeks is going to make up for
Yeah, no, it's not going to make a difference.
what's happened here.
Just 2 quick points for me. One, as someone on the other side of it, I mean, it's undeniable that there's lost learning. Every teacher talks about how we feel like crappy and how we have to go about things. And like, there's no way there's not lost learning. I see it from the perspective of someone creating the work and having it be within the constraints I've been given. And as a dad of 3 kids, one in college, so I'll count her out, but 2 kids, a junior and a 6th grader, there's just no way there's not lost learning. I mean, there's nothing like live instruction. So for sure, I'm with you all on that. Just want to say that. And that's all.
Yeah, it's just a shame. I think it's a shame. It's hard. You don't get those days back as a kid. And I guess we can tackle, I think it was interesting to have those conferences. I don't know if the rest of you had it, where, teachers were and principals were saying, I hope they do something where we have this opportunity. Some kids have the opportunity in the summer, if they want to take some courses, to try to round things out. But we can, approach that when the time comes, certainly. And we do know everybody's doing the best they can here. So I think.
Hey, Tricia, this is Wendy, and this is a little off topic, but I just keep thinking about how every school is kind of coming up with their own plan. Has there anything that you've heard of that that people are doing some sort of study at the DOE on the big level as to I mean, because there may be things that have happened that have been really good, and distance learning in certain cases, they might have learned some really great things about this. I can't imagine because it's so difficult for everybody, but I'm just really curious if there's been any thought process at all in terms of looking at this, because I mean, I hope this never happens again in anybody's lifetime, but it might with something.
Wendy, I really love what you're saying. As someone who does this every day, I feel like that could be an agenda item for any coming month, that Tricia can make that decision. Obviously, she's the chair, but it'd be interesting to look to write something to ask the DOE to conduct some kind of work around this, because I have found that there are some bizarre upsides to this. So
Right. I mean, it'd be nice to have someone who's interested in doing research. I don't know, but that maybe that's another day's discussion. That's a nice to have, not a must have. But you would think, with 1 million kids going through this, and or I don't know how many are left. So many have moved away, but 1 million, we have the largest school system in the country. It'd be a really interesting social science project for someone.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have gotten feedback from the teachers, the guidance counselors about the experience of things that they see improving, while a lot of things are not improving. Just time. I've had a lot more time with my teachers. They've been willing to get on a Zoom call. They don't have this commuting time. Scheduling those parents in person was really hard after teaching a full day at work. Same with guidance. So I've seen increased availability and improved communication with the schools. And they had that same experience. And I think that they've done a good job in some places of doing the same thing with the kids that they're concerned about, like that don't show up to class, that aren't on, the teachers can see who's not, turn the camera on, and then they, can find out what's going on. And it's created more one-on-one is what they told me. And that there are also some kids who actually have done better with the remote setup. They had social situations at school that were not great. So
I've heard that in multiple cases too, that their kids who were doing poorly in school are now straight A students, and the opposite is also true.
The opposite is also true. I think it's especially challenging for kids with attention deficit. I hear that from both of the schools I'm in touch with, which is a lot of kids. So, kids who are social, I think it's going to be really obviously very difficult for them. So, I don't know.
Tricia, quick. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Quick question. What do we think the likelihood, do we have any sense what the likelihood is that they'll pull back these winter and spring breaks? And the reason I'm asking, if we think it is likely, I know the focus of this resolution, but if we think it's likely, should we create an opportunity to weigh in on the fact that the way they did it last year was just not productive, and perhaps either put forward ideas or ask that they look at other ways to manage those periods of time?
I think it could be a whereas that you could say that last year they did this and it was not a successful venture. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have that in a whereas now, and then circle back to it if they go ahead with it,
Right.
and be more assertive about it then. What does everybody think? You're muted, Jeff.
No,
Can't hear you. Try it again.
as the person who brought this forward and brought the attention of the chair and the chair of the whole overall to Tricia and to Tammy Meltzer, I'm very opposed to the idea of offering any reference to how effective it was last time, how it could be more effective. We just don't want it. I don't want to give them tips on how to make it more effective. It shouldn't be happening. It's I can go the route of a teacher. It's a contractual violation. And they had to give us all 4 car days, which roll over. It's not worth getting into, but it's going to cost them down the road so much money also, by the way, to have a week of like kind of BS education, as people are talking about. I don't want us to be on the record about that. And as again, the person initiating this conversation, I'm not interested in us saying how it could be more effective. The point is, the whole reason I brought it up was this shouldn't be happening. The part of this resolution is to say it's not good for the well-being of the people involved. It's not how to make it better.
Jeff,
Well,
are you allowed to vote on this?
I don't know. I'd have to find that out.
I don't think he is allowed to vote on it, but he can weigh in on it.
Yeah.
But I think he can't vote on it. I think, Jeff, what Andrew was suggesting was to talk about the fact that it did not work. I don't think that that would be a problem to put that in a whereas, because if they go ahead with this, we will have gone on the record with that piece of it. I don't see any harm in that myself. If we want to wait until that day comes where they go ahead with it against our advice, I think at that point we would be smart to weigh in, because we wouldn't want them to go back and do what they did for the reason Andrew said and the reason you just said, Jeff. It was expensive. It was ineffective. Most of the kids didn't even do it. And, but I don't think we have to make those suggestions now. But I do think we could reference it having not been effective.
Well, maybe I think the idea that Jeff brings up, that it costs the DOE money because they did it the way they did it last year, that it will be expensive because it will be breaking their contract. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. However you guys write it up, I'm okay with it. But it's not a bad.
I don't think we should go to a solution for them at all. I agree with Jeff on that. But I don't think there's any harm in saying what did not work and the downsides. If you're really opposed to it, Jeff, we could still make the same point without saying it. Just say we don't want to break the schedule. But to me, saying something about what failed the last time could certainly give this a little bit of a bite instead of just.
Yeah. I think we can just say it had dubious to no return.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering what we think about whether we also reference the fact. I mean, I think teachers are often sort of taught to don't ask for any more money, just do everything for free. You're public servants. I'm wondering what people's thoughts are on. It's kind of built into us as public servants who've taken a career that we know is not going to pay that well. I wonder what people think about one of the whereas being that it's also a violation of a contract with the major union and breaking faith with that union at a time where they're under stress. I mean, we're the ones doing the work.
I don't think we should get into that.
I don't either, because they could sidestep it somehow and make the program even more bland. I don't know what they have up their sleeve, if anything, if they're even doing this. I would vote to say that it had little to no returns on investment last time, and it was not a success, and then really just go right to the thing about the children at home.
Well, my initial instinct was not to reference the union, and I've heard you this perspective, but I'd like others, because I'd like you all to think about your own work conditions and how you feel if a contract you've been given for your employment all of a sudden rescinded time that was given to you for your personal life, and how you feel about that as a violation of your contract. Because that's what we're talking about right now.
Most of us don't work in those type of situations, and certainly when I worked, there was just abuse. So
most people have an X number of weeks off. Most people have X number of weeks off per year.
Jeff,
and I'm saying to you,
I'm a public servant too.
I am too, and I'm working for free. And I think, I think it'd just be a slippery slope, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think there's too many arguments against something like that, especially right now.
Or maybe they just try to renegotiate, if we say that, maybe then it's like, okay, now we have to renegotiate. We'll give you back the 4 days or whatever it is. I think there's an answer to it. Well, yeah. I think all we're trying to say is we need to have some consistency here. And, let's not cancel them.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it's safest. Okay.
Again, I was loath to go that route. I just wanted to air out everything before we talked it through. I'm in agreement with what you guys are saying, but it is, imagine they do that to the fire department.
Yeah, they might have. I mean, I don't know how those things work, but I think it's just, it could get into a tangle because that they could, again, renegotiate, and that's not the point.
Just to be clear,
even if they paid you more, Jeff, you do not want to work straight through. And
I get that. I just want to leave my fire department thing out there for a reason, which is they're not even required to get the vaccine. We just got a memo from the chancellor saying if we don't get vaccinated and agree to be tested in the building, if we don't agree to be tested in our buildings, we're immediately suspended without pay or benefits. So there's very different standards between the unions, and it's clear.
Jeff, if any consolation today, you're more important to me than the fire department. I want the teachers back.
More important. We actually passed a resolution to put you guys up ahead of the fire department, remember? I mean,
So I'm getting my vaccination part 1 in the heart of the beast on Staten Island on Friday afternoon.
right?
That was the only place I could find a spot.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. We'll send those for your review. Keep your eyes out. And thank you all so much.
I know, I want to just put something on your radar, and if we can discuss it offline or in the next meeting, which is the SAT testing, which has been happening in private schools all along. They never really shut them down. Now, the kids that, and correct me if I have this piece of information, it's not correct. I was under the impression that schools would administer them for free for their current students. Is that true or not? Is this true or not true? What, even if you had it in your school, they had to pay for it?
I have not heard that at all. And there's someone mute there. I just met with my college counselor at my school today because she met with my students. And I think you're bringing up something incredibly important, Sarah, that we should be talking about next time or even this time because time is tight. But basically, a number of students are basically reporting that they're getting cars, and these are, of course, students have cars and money, and going out to wealthy districts. Whoever's got their mic on could maybe mute it. There's stories of kids driving to Pennsylvania and wealthy districts an hour and a half out of the city where they continually are giving the SAT because they keep closing schools in the city. So there's a huge equity issue going on with this. So you bring up something very important. As far as I've heard nothing about any free administration anywhere.
I
Yeah,
really do.
I think Jeff's exactly right about that.
Yeah.
The ACT, though, Dean actually was successfully able to go to Brooklyn Marriott and take the ACT. So that is behind us. But the SAT, I can't say enough terrible things about them because I was one of those parents that drove my child twice out to New Jersey and they turned him away at the door. And we finally, he took the SAT actually up in New Hampshire because we couldn't figure it out. So,
Actually,
yeah,
guess which school has had it all along? Limon on Broad Street, all the private schools in New York City, and the parents that were able to figure that out, that you need to book them in private school. But Jeff, you're correct. I know of people going to Florida, which they never shut things down to have it. So we need just something to look into about the folks that do not have that ability or the resources, all those kids. Okay. Just wanted to put it on your radar.
And I think that if we do start talking about the SAT, I want to talk about how, I was in a poor neighborhood in New Jersey, and they turned everyone away at the door. We were in Newark, New Jersey to take it. And I felt terrible there were 300 kids there, and the staff showed up from the school. All those kids were in line. And the only people that didn't show up was the College Board people. So they knew that it wasn't going to happen. So
Wow.
There's something truly evil within the SAT. They know what they're doing, and they're being sloppy and arrogant. And the line in Newark, New Jersey, to see that all those kids and all those staff members show up that day. I mean, my kid was the unusual kid in the line. It was horrifying. And I thought to myself, if that's happening in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, that's just horrible.
That is horrible. I mean, I heard from our school that they're resuming March, May, and there was one other month that they were going to be resuming the testing.
Right,
I
so if they're taking it privately to take the ACT.
did not hear whether they were charging. It was just a matter that they were resuming and starting again. And I got a letter from the college guidance from both schools saying that almost all colleges have gone test optional.
I know, but that is, it's still, you know, the coaches that are saying, yes, it's test optional, but for kids that don't stand out in a particular way, if you're not an athlete, if you're not a legacy, if you're not anything else, it's going to be tough to do apples to orange, you know, apples and oranges.
Right. I mean, for kids who stand out on testing, it certainly would be ideal for them to be able to take them. And you know, I get that. It's just the pressure is off at the college level, which I think is good. If the equity issues persist, you know, I mean, we have huge equity issues. My entire family is in school full time in Southern California. I mean, it's unbelievable. And, you know, this has not affected them at all. And, you know, they're in LA, they're down south, but it's still, you know, when you see kids that are having a regular experience, they're playing sports, they're going to school every day, nothing's changed. And you have our kids here who, you know, there's no sports. Like, what's that going to look like going to college? That you lost the whole junior year of your sport. I mean, it's huge equity issues that no one seems to be able to explain how we're going to come back off of. So this is just one of them, but I was happy to see, and you know, Sarah, I will put that on February because I do think it's a great discussion. So we'll put it on that agenda, and I'll do some research and see. Running it.
Sounds great.
Staying on subject of testing, but a slightly different slant. We've spoken about loss of learning and the challenges with these tests. I don't know if public schools provide test prep, but if they don't, is that something we should begin talking about for the next few years of kids that are going to be taking these tests and are probably not going to be prepared for them?
I think they only do a modicum of test prep for SATs. Like, I don't think they really have that part of the curriculum. It's always been something that has been private. I don't know if there are any public after-school situations. Jeff, do you? In terms of SAT?
If you qualify with income guidelines, you can often get some tutoring, but more likely what happens is, like in our community in 276, my daughter was offered test prep, but it was, you know, you paid less than you'd pay for a full-on program, but it wasn't cheap. It was still hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But so Andrew's bringing up something very visionary and powerful, but it is, in the world we live in, Andrew's query is really a radical proposition, an expensive one as well. So I'm all for it, Andrew. I love that you're bringing it up, but just in the world we're living in, that would be considered like, whoa, that's going to be a lot of money. And
well, exactly. And I think they're going to say go to Khan Academy.
And since we started tonight talking about how the DOE wants money back from schools, I wonder how that's going to go over. If we want to now we want more money.
Well, if they end up taking it back, maybe that gives us something to push for. Anyway, I just put it out there for thought.
Yeah, Khan Academy is you know, it's out there and it's free. It's not perfect, but it's a good resource. I certainly have told my son to spend some hours on that. So anyway, thanks everybody.
Yeah, we'll
Can we go ahead and vote on the second item? There was
we didn't do that.
Oh.
If someone can call a question and somebody else second.
Call the question.
Second.
Thank you. Trisha?
Yes.
Jeff?
Abstain.
Okay.
I think I have to abstain, as Judith pointed out. So I'm going to play it safe and abstain.
Okay. Sarah Castle?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Daron?
Yes.
Devin's not here. Den's not here. Talon?
Yes.
Bob's not here. Judith?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew?
Andrew, yes. And just as an aside, I'm not sure, Jeff, if you abstain or if you need to recuse, because they may consider abstain different from recusing.
Great point, Andrew. Mark me for recuse, Jennifer.
Sure. Okay, recuse. Sarah E.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, this resolution passes.
Hold on. Sorry. You got me thinking now, Judith and Andrew. What about Talon? Because he's a student.
No, the issue is that you're getting paid. Like, and the reason it popped into my mind is because once you start talking about, money and the union, that's the conflict. It's a financial conflict.
But you told me not to talk about money in the union, so I'm not. So now I don't know if I need to recuse or abstain. I'll look into it. I'm getting no financial benefit from this, so I don't know why I should recuse. I'll ask Tammy to find out.
I
think the issue.
I can check with Tammy to confirm.
I don't really. I'm just flagging it. So whatever.
Yeah. It's great that you brought it up. I just think I'm not getting a financial benefit, so we'll have to see.
Think about it. But I think the issue is if your vacation was taken away, technically you would be denied a financial benefit, right?
True.
So the issue is it's affecting your financial interest. Let's just put it that way. But
Got it.
But I have no, horse in this, so I'm just flagging it.
I think you're right, but I guess Talon has no. Either way, for him, it's no benefit.
Yeah, I wouldn't think Taylor has a conflict here, but again, I'm not the arbiter of that.
Yeah, look into that. It's a good question. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good night.
Good night.
See you tomorrow, Talon.
Good, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.